My life prior to the accident in the military was a typical life that you would expect from a high school graduate who really didn't have any guidance, or not guidance, but didn't have any direction in their life. I was in high school. I knew that I probably would not be successful in college because I wasn't doing so great as a student. I barely graduated high school with a 2.0. So I knew that I needed a little bit more discipline in my life. I went to school looking for the Army recruiter because I also had some self-confidence issues, and I didn't think that I would be able to handle anything more than just the Army, especially not the Marines. But the Marine recruiter found me, and essentially what they painted a picture for me was that they would push me, they would challenge me, but the biggest thing that sold me is that they wouldn't allow me to quit. They would force me to become the person who I knew I needed to become. I tried football in high school, I quit. I tried weightlifting in high school, I quit. The only thing I stuck with was the ROTC, and I wasn't that great of a student. So then I joined the Marines at the age of 17. I needed my parents' parental consent. Father was happy that I was making the decision on my own. Mother was slightly reserved, but totally supportive either way, and they signed and I joined. I joined as an infantry guy with the option of security forces. Finished my boot camp training, went to security forces, and I was part of the first Fleet Anti-Terrorism Security Team. That's when I started to really get into my own. I started to develop my sense of pride and leadership, started to excel at things like shooting, marksmanship. I was a close quarter battles instructor and team member, designated marksman, moved from fast company to the regular infantry, and I finished my time in the Marine Corps as a recruiter. Did 8 years. Felt like I could have stayed in longer. I got out for personal, marital reasons. But I always had the intention of going back in. I figured get my degree, go back in as an officer, continue my path. And then obviously, or not obviously, but a few years later, in the midst of me figuring out my life and going to school, was when I was involved in an accident that completely changed every aspect of my life's plan. On June 29, 2011, I was riding from Springfield from visiting some friends of mine. It was late, it was like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. But it was a beautiful night, it had just finished raining, and it was one of those nights where you kind of smell that dew in the air, and the sky had just cleared out, and it was just a beautiful, beautiful night, and I was enjoying the ride. It was one of the first times where I actually stopped riding aggressively, because normally on a motorcycle, I ride aggressively. If I ride aggressive, I'm in control. That's the way I look at it. But this was one of those nights where I was just enjoying it, doing the speed limit and just kind of cruising. I glanced to my right for a brief moment while I was making a lane change from the left lane to the center lane, and a car came from the right lane into the center lane and knocked me off of my bike. They actually kept going. It was a hit and run. While I was trying to crawl off the road, I got run over by a van, which crushed my right leg. I thank God, and I think it's a miracle that it didn't crush my left, because as you know from looking at the injury, I'm right above the knee amputee. So to think that a tire was running across one, you'd figure it would get the other. The only thing I could think of is I was in the middle of a crawl when I was trying to crawl off the road, so maybe that's how it missed. Lost part of my hand as a result of the medical treatment at the hospital. Ever since then, it's definitely been like a bit of a struggle, moving on and kind of just reclaiming my life. Day to day, honestly, my number one day-to-day struggle was getting out of bed. Getting up every single day, that was my number one struggle. I did not want to do it. I did not want to leave that bed. I did not want to step out into that world. I did not want to move at all, whatsoever. So essentially, my day-to-day struggle was living. It was my day-to-day struggle. Aside from that, then you had the obvious aspects, which is the increased difficulty in everything. 31-year-old having to learn how to walk again for the first time. When my wife left me, I didn't even have a prosthetic. I was still wheelchair bound. It wasn't until later. So learning how to walk, dealing with the pain from still healing, and then dealing with the added difficulty of having to think about every single step you take, having to think about everything you do. The service dog came as a different attempt for me trying to get my life back was happening. So in order to really just try to get my life back and try to improve my mood, I started participating in adaptive sports through the VA. One of those was the VA Winter Sports Clinic that they have up in New Hampshire, at which point I met a young lady named Alexis who has a service dog named Sooner. And she was there with her service dog, and there were a lot of other service dogs, so I was talking to her about it and seeing what the dog was doing for her, and I said, I'll try it, you know. Myself and my ex-wife had 2 dogs and a cat, and she took them all when she left. The dogs I wasn't as mad about, because to be quite honest, I've always been a cat person. So it was the cat that I was missing. And even with that, like I said, I could not just adopt any dog. I wanted something that would increase my quality of life. And unfortunately, having to worry about the dog messing in the house, having to worry about the dog not listening or running away, that kind of stuff is not something that would increase my quality of life. So it made sense to me to go NEADS. The other reason was after my wife left, like I said, I was still wheelchair bound, and I was in an apartment by myself before I moved here. And I said, just one slip on the only foot that I have, and I go down in the shower and nobody knows. Nobody is here. I would have to yell and yell and yell and hope that somebody heard me. So I knew that in that respect, to have a dog, somebody that could go fetch my phone if I needed him to, or somebody who could bark if I needed him to, and then other people knowing that the barking is bad because he doesn't bark, that kind of thing. Another thing was, if I fell, sometimes when I fall, I don't have anything to brace myself with to stand back up. That's a lot of pressure to put on only one knee, which is the only good knee that I have. So one of the things that I'm able to do with Gunny, and I specified it when I went to NEADS for my interview, was I wanted to be able to brace myself against him in order to help me stand back up. A little thing, but it helps with your independence. Instead of having to have somebody help you and you feeling like you always need somebody to help you, I got a little bit of my independence back. Let's take a step back with that in mind and think about what I was talking about earlier. I joined the Marine Corps at 17. I was in charge of 42 Marines in combat by the age of 21. I was living by myself, self-sufficient, self-sustaining, and independent by the age of 17. My entire life has been about independent and about overcoming challenge, and that's what I needed to reclaim. All of a sudden, having to feel dependent on everybody or anything was another big impact that made things difficult, and that's why I analyzed it and I said I could totally see the benefits of having a service dog. So I went and I sought out NEADS, and they helped. So a typical day with Gunny is actually real simple. Get up in the morning and he actually turns on my lights for me. So I'll just get up and say, Gunny, lights, he'll go and turn on my lights. Obviously, a big difference when I'm in bed and the light switch is all the way over there. I go through my normal routine of hygiene, and then after I'm done, I let him out. I let him out off leash. I just sit here and I watch, and I give him verbal commands if I need to correct, whether he's going too far or if I want him to be closer, stuff like that. After he comes in from going outside and doing his business, I tell him to grab me his bowl. He goes, picks up his bowl and brings it to me so I could feed him his morning meal. Then load him up into the car. I put his little seatbelt on and we go straight to work. While I'm at work, he pretty much just sits right next to me the entire time. There has been a couple of times though where I will drop a file or I will drop something on the other side of my desk, and instead of me going through the cumbersome process of standing up, walking around my desk and grabbing it, I just quickly look over to him, and even if he's knocked out sleeping, I say, "Gunny," he pops right up and he goes right over and I tell him to go pick it up for me. And whether it's a file or a pen or a stamp, he just grabs it and brings it to me. And that's it. That's my normal day. Nothing crazy. We come back home at the end of the day. We throw the football around a little bit. He has been sleeping with me sometimes, you know, but I need that little teddy bear, that warm teddy bear to kind of hug up on. As far as the program is concerned, I think it's very important to recognize that the program does more than just train a dog. The program is greatly impacting the lives of somebody else. From what I've seen, speaking only on the veteran aspect, you got people whose life of service tends to be a life of independence, a life of strength, a life of power, a life of leadership. So when something like a disability cuts them down at their prime, and that's what they feel like they've been cut down at their prime, there's not much that they feel they could really reclaim. So when you look at the service dogs from the perspective as it's not just helping somebody with a disability, it's helping somebody overcome a challenge while also regaining their independence. With programs like this, I feel it's important that people take a step back and really look at the bigger picture. Don't be so simple as to look at it as we're just training dogs. Look at every single aspect of what the program is doing. The program is taking a puppy and it's putting them in an environment where, in the case of a jail, convicted felons, people who have broken the law, people who have personality and social issues, and it's taking those people and helping them calm and be more civilized and focus on getting their time done in a nice, calm, quick manner and focus on something positive that they're doing. So that's one aspect. I mean, the young lady that trained my dog, if I met her out in the street, there is no way that I would ever know that she's been in prison for 13 years. There's no way. And nor do I have any problems going up to her and hugging her and showing her affection for what she's done for me, because she was able to train the dog that I have with me every single day and who literally pulled me out of a hole, a mental and emotional hole, and allowed me to start reliving my life. She gave me some of my strength back. So that's one aspect in which the dog has helped the prisoner and the inmate. Clearly, through listening to my story, you could see the effect that it has on me and how I interact in my life. But then how about the weekend puppy raisers? Family like Scott and Teal, who have their children who have busy lives and they would love to share the companionship of an animal, of a pet, but they really don't have the time to. So to be able to provide a program that allows these people to be involved in the raising and training of the dog, but at the same time providing them that added emotional support of having that cute dog that they're able to focus on and have to be at their side, and also the relationships that it establishes. I don't know if other clients and their dogs still are in contact with their weekend puppy raisers, but I am, and they just took care of my dog for the weekend where I went out on a motorcycle ride. So this is, again, another aspect of the program, is that it's establishing relationships. It's creating a community around one single dog. If the program has 20 dogs, or 100 dogs, that's 100 different communities being formed around that dog. And everything goes back to not only NEADS, but the prison in which the people are taking the time, not just the prisoners, but the staff, and everybody involved in that community is taking the time to properly train and raise the dog, develop the dog that is going to make a difference in somebody's life, a vital difference. It's true, it's a fact that there are approximately 22 veterans that commit suicide every day. Yesterday, 22 veterans killed themselves, and today, 22 veterans will kill themselves. I guarantee you, I would bet money that out of those 22 veterans, probably none of them had service dogs. And if they did, they probably wouldn't be a statistic. The fact that a prison is able to take those dogs and not only train them, but do it more effectively and efficiently, to be able to turn the training time around by 50%, to increase it by 50%, to be able to have a dedicated staff that trains a dog in half the time that it would take another program to do it, you could totally see the benefit in that. So when people look to try to find the value of this program, you're not just training a dog. You are doing a lot more. Take a step back, look at the bigger picture, and realize the community that it is taking and that it is forming around this one dog and the effect that it has on society as a whole.